Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Miss Texas Show with your co-host, Melissa Santana. I am super excited, as always, to welcome you to our show, but also to let you know about our guest today. Today's guest is not only, actually has done many wonderful things, but is an author, speaker, trauma coach, trainer, and literally just has provided knowledge in many things, has mentored many individuals, and we are going to get the pleasure today of hearing from them, which is actually Stephanie Anderson. And so again, all this wonderful, has all this wonderful knowledge, has helped so many others, and hopefully will be helping a lot of you all today. So I hope you tune in, enjoy, and get to learn with me more about Stephanie.
The Ms. Texas Show is a voice of hope for victims, survivors, advocates, and community leaders against gender-based violence to share their stories and resources. We began showcasing life in Texas. Today, we are impacting lives not only in Texas, but also around the world. Under our segment, Military Time, we run this segment in partnership with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. We invite military and veterans who have overcome traumatic events to share their experiences during and after their military service. Under our beauty segment, we invite fellow pageant winners and contestants, artists, musicians, actors, models, and dancers. And last but not least, our survivor leaders from family violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault, stalking, and other traumatic events, who are ambassadors for these causes to share their lives and the impact they have made. To become a guest on our show, email us at msusatexas@gmail.com. If you would like to support victims and survivors of gender-based violence, make a tax-deductible donation to Hope Fix Global at www.hopeyxglobal.org.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome once again to the Miss Texas Show with your co-host, Melissa Santana, but also with our wonderful guest, Stephanie Anderson. And so not only is this an opportunity for us to actually meet Stephanie again, viewers, so like an opportunity to get reacquainted, but also to hear all the wonderful updates on things that have been happening and wonderful, efforts that you have been a part of. And so as a reminder to everyone, Stephanie Anderson is an author, speaker, trauma coach, and trainer with a background in neurodevelopment. She is also a survivor of childhood sexual exploitation. Currently, she mentors men and women in reentry and volunteers with Operation Underground Railroad, Shared Hope, and Traffic Refuge. She is enrolled in Elevate Academy, and her story is featured on the Polaris Survivors Gallery. And so with that, no small feats there. I definitely want to give you opportunity, Stephanie. Thank you once again for not only, your time, for coming back on, but also for updating us, because we would love to know what's been up with you since the last time we spoke. What wonderful things have you been doing and will be doing well into the future?
Yes, so wonderful. This is such a great platform. So appreciate you and what the Miss Texas Show is doing. Our community has just come alive in the last year, like a lot of other ones, but we've just been looking for what is that niche? What is that will engage the heart? Because you can do a lot of advocacy, you can do a lot of testimony, but be able to let you know there's some good things going on that affect nationwide, I think, not just here, but are going on nationwide, and it's really exciting. So first of all, I did do some of my story, and I'm going to kind of jump forward because I'm a child exploitation survivor. But when I got off the streets, I was 17. And so what happened from that point is life. The difficult part of reentry that comes along with leaving the life is actually the hardest part of the rescue. And that is something that isn't done by one. It's done by I'd say a family. It's done by a community. It's done by a group. It's not done by one. And there's many pieces to that. It's not just one size fits all for everyone. And I started to really delve into that when I had a son who ended up with some significant developmental delays. And in order to help him, I had to do a deep dive into you're going to institutionalize him over my dead body, because what's going on in my heart, what's going on inside when people were dealing with him was really personal, and sometimes triggers or sometimes internal lies and things that we've had put in there because of trauma will cause us to react in a certain way. And this worked in my favor because I ended up looking for a solution for him, and that was neurodevelopment. I apprenticed in that for from 2000 when we started working with him until 2009. So that was a lengthy delve into the brain, and it covered everything from internal to external to which part of the brain controls every area. So what's important about that is, as I worked with my son, and that was when we just published that this year. I'm really excited about that. It's Beyond Unlikely to Unlimited. We actually had to take piece by piece because he was nonverbal and because his mobility issues were off the charts. I had to do the exercises with him. So when I'm doing the exercises with him, I'm wearing the eye patch, the earplugs, and I'm having to do those arm on arm exercises and crawling on the floor and everything to get him moving. And his story is miraculous, but what it did for me was it taught me about trauma. It taught me where I had trauma stored in my body, where I had trauma stored that really is unseen. And you have a thinking brain, and you also have your physical brain. And in the thinking brain, you have all of these things stored, these reactions to what you're going to do or to things that come at you. But really what's operating that system is that what's going on in the brain. And so piece by piece, I was able to move through healing him. But at the same time, I was receiving a lot of that for myself. And that is a whole different story, which led me into a lot of different therapies to help him and to help me, because I've been in Survivor Academy with Rebecca Bender, where they had amazing people and coaches that came in and utilized their skills in helping you with therapy and all these different things. And I came on some things. I think the journey that we have is finding out what our unique gifts are going to be, skills are going to be, but also what is it that I bring to the table that can help support other survivors or help them get out. So 3 of those things this year, especially, that opened up. The first was mentoring. There's always a need for support and mentoring, which is basically maybe even not a voice, but to sit with someone who's going through one of those days where they don't really need advice. What they need is someone to be with them nonverbal. And trauma, sometimes the best way to deal with it is nonverbal. And so going back to a call I'd listened to, they were talking about how a woman had been speaking and advocating and going to legislation, and same thing every year, the same thing, put all this effort into it. And what's important to know about sharing your story in advocacy is every single time that we bring our stories forward, every cell in our body and every cell in the bodies of the people that we're talking to actually responds to what we're saying. So there's so much energy that goes into that. There's so much effort, and it sometimes can leave, doing advocacy can be draining and emotional. So I was listening to them talk about how at one point they decided to put artwork as down the hallway. So as someone was coming to see her speak, they passed by this artwork that really engaged it's a whole different part of the brain that we use when we're going to engage with a topic, especially a difficult topic. So what was really powerful is the engagement. They have data that they collect after her event showed there was such a different response when they had this preview of the actual heart and of the other side, the abstract part of healing by survivors. So I really thought about that and really engaged in that and started to think, well, we do a lot of art, just nonverbal art, even in neural development, just to basically, you're going to put the brain together with the emotional side of the brain. There's 2 hemispheres. But what art and creativity does, people who do music and people who do art, oftentimes they can connect with like an image more than they connect with, say, a discussion with some questions. And the reason why, especially when I was working with Christian, when he's so young, he can't really talk about what's happening, but he can see clearly in his mind and in his heart how to communicate that to himself. And that's a really important piece of that. So part of this year, what we've been doing in our community is there's especially a really important thing that I realized was we were focusing so much on survivors, and Montana's population where I live is a lot more sparse, say, than Houston, Texas, than some of the other places where they do a lot of advocacy. Yeah, we are very small population compared. But at every single event, when I was watching and seeing is, even though we were talking about survivors, what was happening is after every event, there were some women who would come forward and men who would talk about deep, difficult situations and trauma that had happened to them. And I realized that while we were focusing in on survivors, there was a lot of unhealed trauma in our community, and a lot of unhealed trauma in people who probably, I think one lady was 62 years old and she never shared about an event. Because in culture, a lot of times it's not an appropriate place, or let's say they haven't got counseling. Who knows why they've carried it that long, but this became the opportunity where I identify with that story and I want to get healed. So what happened this year is we began to just talk about that with women, talk about that with groups, talk about that with how could we create this place for healing for women or men who are interested maybe in art and creativity, that this might be the way that they can find their voice, not necessarily through their voice. So what we started to do was bringing very limited tools. Like if you're in a third world country, you don't have a lot of expensive brushes. You have things like Q-tips and sponges and some things that are very child, like they resonate with the child. The child doesn't have a performance yet. And we start with very basic tools like watercolor, and even, and all we're doing is bringing the lies. What we'll do is put that tool down on a piece of paper, and each person's story, without having to talk about it, can be touched, can be reached, can be open. And then we use some affirmations. Like afterwards, we'll have them put on, we do vision boards and that kind of thing, is where you pick what are the things that are the most painful, and then what did that do? What is the actual truth? There might be a lie that was imprinted, and I'll go back to that. When a child or even an adult goes through a traumatic experience, in that part of their development, in that part of their nervous system, that trauma is stored. And when we put pen, or we put our paintbrush down, or we're doing that, we can ask, what are those lies? And we can draw how ugly that lie is. We can put whatever color that looks like to us without having to really go into detail. And then we can ask, we can change, we can ask for help. We can ask for, what is the actual truth of that? What is my future? From that moment, we walk through it, we experience it, and then we can move forward from that. And so that's what's important. Is the next step is, what does that look like? What is that actual color? What is that going to change for my future? And so that's what we've been doing. And there's also advocacy where we can do that same activity in the public, but also be putting down spontaneous poetry. We call it painted poetry, where they may have something that's very painful, but really what God wants to do in their future is give them something beautiful, give them something affirming. So coaching is what I call it, but it's really been about appointing where I identify with the lies that have happened and the trauma that is stored, and then receiving what I need for the future. And I think it's not just individually, when we've done it with because we usually do this with groups, because you need more than just it's nice to have one person that can do this, but when you come out of revealing what trauma you had and begin the journey of walking in truth, you need other women and other people around you that are going to affirm you, that are going to continue to remind you, that are going to continue to help you on that journey. It's not done Lone Ranger, it's done in community. So we've seen that is the best possible place for us to do this. And we've also seen that that's really a community healing. It's not just one person here and there, that there's more of a corporate and more people that want to do it together. And that's exciting to me. I think that with this, everything that's going on, everyone's been traumatized in some way. And even the helpers that come to, that wanted to just, hey, can I lend a hand? Can I set up a table? Will end up engaging with their own inner trauma. So that's one piece that we've done. We've done the different kinds of artwork. And then we also did movement, because there are also some individuals that they're not necessarily getting in touch creativity wise with just art. Some of the people are into music, like my son is very musical, but other people, there's grief or there's trauma that's stored in the body. And when we did the neurodevelopment, what happened is you have to go through all these steps. When you're a baby, you're down on the ground, you're moving up into sitting up straight. All that actually works with your visual development and your auditory development. So there's all of these stages in the process of becoming human, in the process of becoming someone who is fully functional. And in those times, just like art, being able to access that point where this happened and this lie that brought such shame came in. Sometimes even grief can store in the body. And when we're moving through that, it'll be caught in, they'll see when they hear something, you can say, well, where in your body did you feel that? Or when I'm triggering, where is that? Is it central to your stomach? Is it in your back? Is it in your shoulders? And we can work through the same process without having to use art tools of just cycling through and finding that affirmation and finding that truth. Just like, well, traffic bothers some people, believe it. Traffic is so loud and there's so much going on and I don't want to be outside when there's traffic. There's a way of walking through that, of retraining your body and your neural pathways so that you can address what you previously absolutely, maybe it would have been terrifying, or maybe it's just sensory overload. So bringing healing, I guess, is the main thing that we're seeing, is that healing is available, healing for communities and not just individuals, that we're coming together to make things better for all of us, because we've all been going. And this just happens to be the funnest. It has been the funnest way I've seen in a long time to address a difficult topic, because trafficking is difficult. And I weave that in my story so that we can identify, but it's not the end all. The end all is that we want to be healed. The end all is that we want to be there for each other. We want to support each other in affirming each other for the future. And I'm very excited because that's the new journey. Before, it was mainly focused on training. Now we do seminars with a group called Lift, and they work with the community. So we're still doing some of the we have a detective working with us, and he talks about keeping children safe. We're teaching predatory behaviors online. We're teaching those specifically to communities and to groups that want to learn about predators and how they address online. And that's fascinating. It's very important. So we are doing that analytical piece where we do partner with authorities, and we try to engage and make sure that our children are safe. So that's the preventative. And then this is let's appropriate healing. Let's move forward as a community. Let's go ahead and take a different road. Let's not stay traumatized. Let's move forward in healing and all go together. And that's exciting. I'm excited to see in all the communities how that'll work out.
Oh my gosh, yes, definitely. And it sounds like super exciting. Well, and then I also love that it's something that you're excited about, and then it's easily infectious to get others excited about it also. So I just feel like, that's wonderful energy to be able to translate and have, and then also to amplify. But so I also want to clarify to everyone. So when I said that we were meeting Stephanie again, in case others have forgot, it's because Stephanie, so one of those guests that's so nice, we had her twice. She is actually was on the show before, just so, like I said, to let everybody know. And so this is just a lovely update about like we said, like where you're at and all of that. But I don't know if I didn't catch it because I know you're tied to numerous organizations. So when you said we and all this great work with it you're doing and all these wonderful and how it's tied to artwork and and it's also like reprogramming, which particular organization is this tied with, or is it just work you do on your own?
I've been doing this on my own with under Traffic Refuge, but they can
Okay.
contact me through, actually, there's a phone number they could call or text to get an appointment. I can call and find out what their community needs. And it's 406-594-2871. Again, 406-594-2871. And you can text and ask about art or movement therapy, because most of those organizations, if they have a community gathering, they'll call and say, this is specific before an event. Like, we're going to do trafficking training, but prior to that or after that or during a session, we're going to use this to help them move through and process what they've just heard or what they're dealing with now. It kind of complements the other events that those organizations that have already put all that effort in are ready and going. So I can come up alongside them to be one of those voices and help the people that hear that or the survivors that we discover come in and do a little bit deeper work. So
Absolutely. And then I'm curious too, like, because I think there's such great value in art, and of course the affirmation. So like there's a lot of things that are like speaking to like one's creative side, and then like and not having to see trauma as this dark, dank thing that like, which I mean, of course it may have been at one point, but just a way exactly like a way to like reprogram. Absolutely. So I'm curious, like for you, like, was it something that you had like done yourself? Like, how did you like stumble upon this being like the effective, like method to be able to help others?
Sure. So in neurodevelopment, Dr. Carolyn Leaf is the voice. She is the neuroscientist and she is a rock star. And I had read some of her books, and her latest book talks about neurocycling. So I was shocked because what we did with art in my own life, the very first time that I went through that, it blew the doors right open of the beauty of the future. Because what happened is you're dealing with the lie and you're doing it. And when I started painting over that, because you start with, let's put whatever the one lie is that you had during this experience. But then the second part was, now we're going to paint over that with the truth. We're going to ask God to let us know what the truth is about that lie. And as I was painting that, I mean, it was like blowing the doors wide open. This is what my future is going to be. This is how I'm going to bring healing, because really that's where I discovered that it was healing. And all of those are so personal. It's not something that someone tells you what to paint. You're actually doing this asking, and the Holy Spirit's telling you, well, this is how I see you, or this is how I see, what you're doing. And that changed everything, because from that moment, I realized there's such a power in that affirmation, that someone's not just giving you an affirmation on a piece of paper or a quote. You're actually receiving a big picture that covers over that darkness. And so when that happened, that changed. I mean, that I realized what a powerful tool that was. And so I would actually, when I'm dealing with something that is so difficult, there's some seasons that are so difficult that I can't breathe, or maybe a friend of mine is going through something that is so difficult she can't breathe, and sitting down and saying, okay, what is the lie that I'm believing about the circumstance, and then asking for what is the truth about this, and then writing in affirmations. That's become a core part of just personal walking and personal, like some people use different classes in that, but this has actually been a very personal way for me to work through some very difficult things since since that first affirmation, that first session that we used with the coach. And I thought that from that moment, that picture, that new picture was basically imprinted forever. Never lost it. I can still see it as clearly today. So that changed my direction. That changed how I saw, and also how much activity, like I was free to go ahead and just keep going out there, keep seeing who wanted to do it. I mean, it was more than just one word. It was multi-purpose. Multi-purpose. So yes, and especially with because it's nonverbal, then the person who's starting just at the beginning, or it's so big in their own mind about what's happened, it gives them a chance to do it without having to explain themselves. And if they want to do a tiny bit, if they want to do the whole thing as black, I've seen that, where it's just so dark and black for the very first time. I don't have to talk about that, but I can definitely identify with it. And then from that moment, my journey starts, because I brought that darkness into the light. Some people come up and will talk to me, but the fact is that that's been hidden. And once the light hits that, it dissolves, and the darkness doesn't have a way to stay because you brought it into the light. So I know it happened for me, and I know it's happened for others. And I know that that is where we're going. We're going to be healing monsters. We're going after people. We're going to be aggressive. And just, here's the opportunity for you to do this in a non-threatening setting. Maybe you're not comfortable with some things, you don't want to share with your family or your church or your community or whatever. This is a safe, sacred space where we respect the fact that trauma is very difficult to deal with. But we also realize that there's a huge hope in a future that you can embrace, that you can see, and you will never be the same after you find out how good that is. You won't be satisfied.
Oh, amen. But yes, absolutely. Because I definitely feel like, and that's what I'm hoping viewers you're hearing is that, you know, no matter where you're at, I mean, we definitely talk a lot about trauma on the show. We definitely talk a lot about, like, you know, violence. And of course, but, and not just that, right? Like, not just the fact that it exists, not just what it is, but we're also talking to people who are survivors, you know what I mean? Who are showing you what life looks like on the other side of it, you know, how they've like converted that pain into purpose, how they see the beauty behind the pain. And so it's just like, you know, being able to use that. So I love today that, you know, by us speaking about this art therapy, I also want viewers to realize, yes, this may be, you know, your tool. Maybe you're like, I've tried the other methods. They're not super effective for me. I feel like they don't allow me to really get to, you know, the depth of where I really would like to go. Or also, I mean, it's just not the avenue for me. You know what I mean? I've tried ways where, yes, I'm forced to have to like speak on something, even at a point where I'm not ready to. And I mean, I've tried to, but the words literally don't even come out. So it's like, I love that, yeah, this provides that like alternative way to be able to do that, but then still unlock the healing behind it. I mean, because that's always the point, right? Is that whether it is through traditional methods, whether it is through something creative, that we're not afraid to unlock the healing that we do so much deserve, but like may not have had access to before.
That is true, because I mean, we can, and up to now, what I've seen a lot of times is we get to that point where, okay, we're talking about what's difficult, but where do you go from there? Where do you go from there? And in my life, when I worked with my son, literally, I didn't even look back until I got sober, had my son, and then I was actually sitting with a couple of survivors, and suddenly now this monster's there. Suddenly now I'm having to look back and go, oh, what do I do with that? And the fact is that to find out that this is happening, say it's a community, or to suddenly be starting that journey, where do we go from here? Well, the whole purpose of revealing that is so you can move forward and be a victorious warrior. So you can go forward and you can bring people that light. But you first need to get that light. You need to catch that light, and you need to get it however you can. And you can drink it if you're going somewhere where you love music and drinking and worship and that. And I have friends that is fantastic, and I'm a part of groups like that. But there's also others that, how are we going to engage that difficult conversation with the intention of bringing that healing, bringing that light that is powerful enough to destroy and to give them a future and a hope? Well, that's what we're here for. I think we're on a new place as a survivor community, and I think as just as a community of people in this nation, that we want something more than, well, here it is, it's ugly, this is what's happening, but let's go forward. Let's start that process out of the darkness and into the light and into the light and further into the light to bring others with us. I think that's where we're going. And I'm excited about that.
No, absolutely. And I think you have every right to be. And I, as we are, because I definitely think it's such a, wonderful place to be on with that. And what I love about what I'm hearing is that, like you said, in the midst of doing all this, it's also been helpful to you. And I mean, literally to your own family, like with your son and, with all that. I'm actually curious too, like, so speaking of all that, like, what has healing looked like for you since the last time we spoke? Like, what levels of healing have you unlocked also for yourself? You know what I mean? Like, which, I mean, obviously I'm sure is why you can also, why you're so like, such an advocate for this level of it, because like I said, you've seen it firsthand. But yeah, what has that looked like for you? And what are some lies that you have also been able to like, relinquish?
Sure. And what's really important about that is the last 4 years, because I think it's been at least a couple of years since I was on here. We were going through the most difficult season I'd ever been since my time out. My husband had a motorcycle accident, so we were living in a motorhome. We had sold everything. The last time I talked on this, we were literally in that situation, and part of the survival of those seasons and chapters, which are very difficult when you really, is to find hope again. It's to find, like, what is the future going to be when you have literally gotten down to the bare bones again, and you're looking at, wow, I thought that this was going to be a season that I was never going to have to return to, and I've got other people that I'm responsible for. Before it was my son, and now it was my husband. So what it brought was hope, because I was able to go beyond the lies that were happening, because lies can come in during difficulty, not just during trauma. And in fact, the tendency for me that I identified was when something difficult, what inner tape automatically started playing. Because in recovery, and the first step for me was presented as everything in your brain and your body and your attitudes and your behaviors is set to go back, but there's a solution. And so the gravity of that is, yes, I have all of these things that are pointing me to, when it gets difficult, my internal goes from 0 to 60 down to hopelessness pretty fast, and also some pretty bad solutions to my problems. So I had to sit back and I had to say, well, where's hope in this? Where's light in this? God, where are we going to find, what are you saying about this? So using the art and using his word and just saying, this looks really bad, this looks so hard, this looks insurmountable, and having God say, but just wait, this is only today. Let's just take today at life on life's terms. Where are you? Where are your hands? Be where your hands are. And just remembering the tools that for a period of time I had to really dig in to really get sober, and I had to really go forward with every day having a schedule. The reason why those things were really important in this season, because it was so dark, it was so difficult to say, wow, how are we gonna take care of things? And sure enough, one day at a time, those steps became clear. It was like going up the staircase again and saying, these are only temporary. For me, it was the realization of, I can only work on today. I can work on my attitude. I can work on doing what I know works. I know I need to seek God. I need to do all of those things and hear and read his words, so that I have something that I can put my being carabiner in when I'm climbing this mountain again. Because it's not, again, the fact is that we don't go through a valley and get to a plateau. If we're growing and we're moving forward, it's going to have cliff faces. There's going to be times that it's going to be very difficult, even if we've been out of the life for a long time. For myself, that was the case. Or whether we are just facing life with a new family, all of that is a new adventure. It all has different criteria to have to deal with. And so I've grown tremendously, because what I realize is, if I will do today if I will take the tools, if I am really struggling, I'll do, the art. If I will listen to God in any way I can, then I'm going to have the next step and the next step to get to the place where the light is bright again. And the other part that was really interesting is it was so difficult, and I was doing my normal everyday thing. I was doing what I knew I had to do. But one day I was out in the field and I was walking our dog, and suddenly it went from an analytical, what I was listening to just worship came over. And I was like, I don't even feel like engaging in this. This is not where I am. And God very clearly said, yes, but this is the only thing that's powerful enough to carry you in this season. And I went, all right, about face. So every single day I added that tool to my toolbox and really have felt being carried to today. And we just literally moved into a place a month ago. So I was traveling and doing things and wasn't even telling anyone. I was just at a place with, all right, we're on our way up. We're up, we're moving forward. I know we're going to get it. And here we are. But it took that every single day, realizing, I can hear lies. And if I choose to walk with those lies and believe those lies and act on those lies, which are very easy for me, then I'll never make it up that next ledge to see what's really going to be happening in the future. So I'm just gained gratefulness, and I gained just a weight of understanding that, yes, it's true because of who I am and where I've come from, that if I don't intentionally use what I've been given, the chances of surviving those situations, I can destroy my life pretty easily. And I don't ever want to be in a place where that happens. And I've seen that happen to so many. So yeah, I gained getting through this chapter with grace, and I didn't cause harm and I didn't destroy my life. And so I'm celebrating that, the difficult seasons that come. We can overcome those. We do have to be intentional. It's not easy at all. I'm not saying that, but God has given us everything we need for life and godliness. He's given us tools. He's given us art. He's given us music. He's given us worship. He's given us his word. We have everything we need. We just have to use it. We just have to take it seriously.
Absolutely. And I definitely can agree more. And that's actually what I was going to say too, was that it just sounds like you're so, like affirmed. You're definitely like, just feel like definitely validated in your process. And definitely that, you're on the right path, which you are. I mean, of course I agree with that, but I just definitely feel like it just shows though, like it just shines in it. Like you said, there may have been times where even you questioned where you were, like you said, like there was that moment where you weren't even ready to receive the message, but God was like, no, you're still going to get it today. So like, up to you whether or not, to take that. I just think it's wonderful how all of those things have come together. And what I'm curious about is like, and would you say it was the mixture of just, your spirituality, like your connection to God mixed with the art? Like what have been your like pillars? What have like been your sources of strength? Like, was it a mixture of that? Was it also your son? Like, what would you say helped you the most, on this journey, which is still evolving, right? I mean, we're literally, like you said, and congrats, by the way, on the new move that you just had.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So and I tell the story in my book. My son says it the best. He's a rock star. He is such a miraculous testimony, but he ends up telling people, I've seen too much to go back. And he literally had a miraculous deliverance from autism. It's just, his story is incredible. So his biological father tried to kill us. He was in a meth rage, and he didn't even know what he was doing. He woke up out of a 9-day, we called a meth vacation back then, and came after my son and I. And the power of God, that I was such a new believer. I knew nothing about, I really didn't know anything about theology or any of that, but I did have a Bible, and I'd opened it up and I'd read aloud whatever psalm was in front of me. And I watched this 290-pound Tongan man out of my peripheral coming straight at us, and he was going to kill us, and he was screaming those words, I can't even say those kind of words anymore. He was coming at us, and he grabbed my head, and he hit, and I'd seen him smash people's noses into their face. He just was a very violent person. And I had my 18-month-old son behind me. And when he did that, I felt him hit. And then I thought maybe I had died because the presence of God was so strong, the peace of God, that I didn't want to open my eyes. But when I did, he was on the ground sobbing. Sobbing. And he looked at me and he said, I wish I had your faith. I said, you will. I'm going to pray for you until you do. And so I have seen too much. And my son is really, really part of that, is that we have this we've been rescued from literal death by a God who has shown up in the darkest places. And so in this last season, it was a combination. First of all, that bedrock of, I know who my God is, and I know that he has moved in my life in such a powerful way that he's never going to leave. Because that was probably the worst. We take him into these places when we're new believers that, we weren't doing meth anymore, but we're still with dealers. I'm not doing meth anymore. I'm trying to clean up my life. And I'm done. I'm raising my son. I'm doing all of this. So fast forward to today, the same things that were the bedrock of the beginning of my journey was seeing God move. So on the day when I just feel like I can't take another step, I can't breathe anymore, I can't do this, God reminds me of his power and his presence, and he crashes in on me. That day, literally, that worship music came over that speaker and literally just overwhelmed me to the point where I had to face that. I don't feel worthy. I don't feel like I need to be in your presence. He's like, that is the only place that you need to be when you're having difficulty. So I could repent and say, okay, that is a lie. That is a lie that I had to face of when it's tremendously difficult, that I can't bring that mess into the presence of my loving Father. So it was really the combination. That foundation has to be there. His presence has been in everything, whether it was the art, just recognizing that first, his presence, first meet with me, first be with me, no matter what your mess is. And then we'll read the word together. Then I'll speak through that. Or then if it's really difficult, I'll be doing the art and asking for specifically why can't we overcome this injustice issue? Why is this? They're real, but he has to be more real in my heart because he already is the king of the universe. But I have to seek him first, and then I'll find all the answers I need. And he'll use the tools, and his word will be there. But his presence has changed everything. It is a totally different place for me to be in that worship first. I'm dancing or whatever I'm going to do. And then to come into the analytical side of my mind, which is where he speaks, out of his word, which is so powerful. But first of all, I know I'm loved. First of all, I know he's there. And then let's have fun. Let's paint. Let's dance. Let's do whatever the worship is. But let's always love him first. So, yeah, it's changed my life. It's changed everything in my life this year. So, this last couple of years.
All right. And rightfully so. And of course, yes, I definitely feel that your son is incredible, has had an incredible journey, but just also sees things in such an incredible way. So that's the thing, and for you to, be the one that also with him and, capture that as well. And for that to be beautifully captured together, but also in your story and in your book, just amazing. Just because, yes, that was a lot for anyone to have experienced. My goodness, but I'm just so glad you all have each other and that, you all are now on this great journey and definitely in a better place, but together and on the other side of it, because man, but you did mention it, you're definitely your book. So I am curious, what was it like? You know what I mean? Like writing that book, where is the book? Everything about the book. I would love to give you more space to speak on that.
Sure. So I think in all of our journeys, we take little pieces here and there. My son says he'll write down like something on his piano and then go back to it and fill in the story. So all along the journey, I did a lot of journaling, like writing out things that were difficult, hard, this, that, and the other thing. And also just with school, going through the book work for the neurodevelopment was very intense. So there came a point that I really wanted to capture that. And so the really beautiful thing is I finally went to my son and said, we found a publisher that'll do both the music and the book. So we went ahead and we got it published and everything. And the hardest part about that for both of us was we got finished with the project. The video was phenomenal for one of the pieces that he wrote, was just absolutely beautiful, because after he was healed and went through this transformation, we had to put him in a sound vacuum, is the only way I can describe it to you. He was like most typical autistic children. They hear musical tones and certain things so loud that they never developed language. So part of our journey is we had to take away music from him. We had to take away that sound so that we could develop all of those other places in his analytical brain and his language. So that's part of what I wanted to capture, because there's so many different pieces going through the healing and the difficulty we were having with his father, and just on and on, how that process worked itself out. So we finally got this book published that showed some of Christian's beautiful. He does more of a theater. Back then he was writing theater pieces, things that you would hear on, like he'd rewrite. I think he listened to Sweeney Todd once and he said, I don't think I like that, Mom. I'm going to rewrite that. And literally he would sit down and he would rewrite the whole part. He rewrote music for Les Mis because we found out that we couldn't do any performances with original music. So he rewrote all the background music for that. So we were excited about that. And we went to this publisher and the publisher folded. So they didn't ever provide anything. And so it took all of this time to fight through, how do we get the title back and how do we do all that? Anyway, and so the beginning of this year was the year of redemption. We still don't have his music. We don't have his CD. He has some of them on Reverb Nation, and we did get them downloaded on a couple of sites. But then what we were able to put the story to get back together and then self-publish it. This year we were able to get back, contact like the Oklahoma Attorney General. And I guess what I would like to say about that is sometimes that's another chapter that might happen, where you can get all of your expectations into a project or into something and you think that it's going to turn out this way and it doesn't, it goes south. And I would say I had to learn to process those emotions honestly. Art is really powerful for that. When you're really angry and upset and you really know you're going to cry if you tell anybody, there are certain things that you can do personally with God to help you walk through that. So the story is so important to me because I wanted to capture Christian, all those things that happen. Some people have like photo albums that show all their child's all these activities, and we have a few of those, but we've lost so many times, being moved from one season to another during that whole thing, to remove those elements from our lives so we could focus purely on healing. We lost a lot of what normal, typical life pictures and all of that, but we were able to capture the ones that we did make it out with, and we were able to put the story together with both the ugly, what happened with John, his father, and on into moving through the healing and how we're going to go forward in the future and what our hopes and dreams are. And Christian's a 26-year-old. We took him all that music away, and 18 months after that process of developing analytical speech and where he could move through, because the first 3 months he was stuttering and he was reversing words. We got through that, And at 18 months, we gave him back his first keyboard. He had developed language strong enough. He had done all of that. We'd done all of that work. Jesus had come and met him in such a powerful way. And we gave him a keyboard, and he wrote his first composed piece that I knew, because before they said, if you don't do this, your son will be able to play anything he hears, which is typical. Autistic savants can have a visual savant who can draw after they see it once. And a lot of auditory, they can actually listen to a piece of music and play it. But what I was realizing as I talked to the neurodevelopmentalists is they'll never create if they don't develop where the brain can move both ways. They're basically taking out of a stored recording. They're not bringing anything new to the table. And that was pretty powerful, because in a lot of the therapies and a lot of the options that are out there that I had to endure, it was very similar to learning a behavior or a coping mechanism, but it never becomes something that brings life or creates, it stays on this place of taking what I've learned and just rehashing. It never comes through into the potential and purpose that God has for it. And so with Christian, that's what happened. 18 months, we give him the kid. Everything he's writing is purely, out of his own spirit, original. And today he's a musician. He does worship for, he did worship for a long time. And now he's basically gone to as many genres, because he plays several different instruments, that he can, so he is living his best life. He's living in a skill set and creating, and he's with all different groups, and he's had the opportunity to find out what he loves. And so have I. And I'm not bogged down with just what we've learned. There's more than just learning how to cope with life and take the next step. There is this time of what are we looking forward to, because God didn't just purchase a life. He purchased what's going to be an abundant life, which means every area we get to see what we truly were created for. And he's living in this beautiful place where he is doing music with a lot of different people. And he's had the opportunity to play for the governor and the veterans, but he's doing what he loves. It's not just what mom likes.
Absolutely.
Because I love the compositions, but he has his own projects and bands and friends and relationships. And I'm just so proud of him. And so it's that story that we were able to capture of both the good, the bad, and the ugly into beyond that unlucky place you are to the unlimited place that God wants you. So we call it beyond unlikely to unlimited.
Oh, nice. Right, which is, yeah. And so it definitely is. It is a beautiful like illustration of it and everything, and like you said, a beautiful way to capture all of that, because yes, I mean, you definitely, I think there's definitely some ugly there, like you said, that have been there, but I mean, there's also just such like great wonder, and there's just also just such great beauty, and there's also just such, wonderful thing that you've been able to do. And that's why we need, and we need more reminders of that, because we need to remind people how you're not what's happened to you, you know what I mean, you're not defined by that, clearly, because
that's right.
Yes, you all have risen to tremendous heights, you yourself, your son especially. And like you said, he's also owning his journey, because it's not just things that you've asked him to do, but it's things that he wants to do. So he's able to invest in it and, have his own joy behind it. So like, man, if that's not the dream, literally the dream, to be. So,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so with that, I mean, I definitely think the book is amazing. Where is it that everybody can find the book? You know what I mean? If they want it, how can they find you? All those wonderful things.
Wonderful. So you can find the book is available on Amazon, Beyond Unlikely to Unlimited by Stephanie Anderson, and it'll show mother and son's journey out of autism is how we directed it. And then to get a hold of me, you can give me a call at that number, 406-594-2871, or you can go ahead and send me an email. We have recoverymontana@gmail.com. Part of what my husband and I do today is we help people that are getting back on their feet. We work with both sides of the equation, which might seem really strange, but another place that I saw that the Lord put on my heart I was working with the persecuted church, just doing advocacy, setting up tables, because a lot of trafficking happens. Literally, girls are trafficked for their faith in places like Pakistan. So what I brought back into the reality now was that we had men and women that we needed to work with. So recoverymontana@gmail.com is the email you can get a hold of me to get more information, to connect with me, and I'll be able to show you where our next website is, because we have literally been parking under different organizations. Just parking under different organizations. And I've noticed so much is rapidly changing. I've watched websites go up and down. I've watched directions go. So I finally said, let's wait till the dust settles. Everyone's really getting back out there. I'm super excited about that, but I want to just keep it pretty simple. So if you send me a text on that one line, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And then if you send me an email at recoverymontana@gmail.com, I can also connect with you there, or you can find the book on Amazon, and then you can lead through. Some of those same tools I talked about are in the back part of the book. There's actually a work through some of those issues section where you can do the work that I just talked about, captured personally at home, or get prepared to go into a session where you work with a group. So I look forward to meeting you. I look forward to healing our communities. I look forward to the other side of trauma is where we're going.
Absolutely. And I agree. And so I feel like viewers, same for you. If you feel like this was your sign to get connected with this, and to also embrace that there is life on the other side and all the hope and, beautiful things that await you. Yes, it is your time to respond to that. But you also have people that can help you, like Stephanie. So I want you to feel encouraged by that. By the book, if you feel like, you can definitely connect with that story and also just to learn more, really, just in general about their incredible story, and how that can also inspire you. If the art therapy spoke to you, there's just so much here, that you can connect with, but also benefit from. So I feel like viewers, I hope, you feel encouraged to do that. And Stephanie, with that, you've already shared such wonderful things, but is there any last things that you want to say? Anything else you'd like to share? Anything else?
All right. So the last piece, I'm just going to read one quick thing. It's this is one of the very first times I was doing the art coaching and mixing with a coaching session. I wrote this poem, and we'll end it with this because this really kind of summarized. This is called Until I Dance. And this I want to dedicate to all those that are beginning their healing journey. This moment is just a sentence of my story here and now. My senses tell the story, not the story I want, but the story I know. My eyes are open to the world, but closed inside a mouth. My ears, they hear what you're saying, but they just can't understand. The pain is still suffocating. Some days it seems without end. Yes, my senses shout a story. Chains about my feet, yes, inside I know this is not meant to be. Somehow I will stand and move. What I need is a song, my heart to feel, my eyes to see, my ears to hear. To move is life, which feels like a race, but in truth is a dance. I must learn to move, to remove the masks of fear, the mask of hate, the mask of love that was not love, of abuse, of loss. There is grace right here, right now, with each move I take until I dance. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And see, when it's beautiful things like that, viewers, I don't want to ruin it. So with that, I just want to say thank you for that, for you, for everything you do, for being with us, for your time. And thank you, viewers, also, as always, for tuning in. But definitely thank you, Stephanie, for that and for everything.
All right. God bless. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.